Good afternoon. Welcome to Senate Education. Only have one item of business this afternoon, and that is the CTE report. And this is what I'm trying to do here, and we can have you back. But Senator Gulick raised a good question last week. I know other senators and House members who are really interested in CTEs, myself included, we want to know what is going to, we have this big report. How do we get it ready to actually roll something else so we can have a productive January? And so a couple of things. Act 173 requires that you guys take a first stab at a report, I believe.
For the record, Ted Fisher, Vermont Agency of Education, their agency structure for communications, legislative affairs. Thank you very much for having me in today on this. And I unfortunately was hoping to prepare more comments. I'm not right working.
This can just be a question and answer, and we can have you back in.
So,
but
I'm doing working memory here, but the way the chain of the report was issued in March.
Right.
The agency is then tasked with creating, and I think if I'm getting the words correctly, creating an implementation plan that is due July 1. And so that's the order of operations that we are operating under.
So you're going to come back with an implementation plan, your opinion, the agency's opinion on how to implement it.
It is reviewing the report and coming up with the recommendations for implementation. So the thing I just want to make sure I say, and I don't think this is a surprise. The report came out in March. We have a couple of months work to do. So I'm also not Director DeCarolis, who I know I think you hoped originally to speak to, and she's unfortunately doing a lot of field work this week. So I'm a poor replacement for her in many respects in terms of just discussing the ins and outs of CTE funding. My goal, so really what I can offer in terms of status update is we're engaged in the process of work on this in terms of reviewing the report, figuring out what the logistical details would be. But we don't have anything, it's still too premature to sort of share any of that work in advance. And I should just note, we did share concerns when this bill was considered about the short timeline to produce this, as well as the idea of creating an implementation plan that's the basis of the report. I think that we will, I don't want to speak for us because again, we have work to do, but we will come with something that then will have to be judged, right? And we will probably have our own thoughts about the feasibility of some of those suggestions in the reports. I just want to note that those will be appropriately flagged depending on what our response is to those items.
Ted, it's due in July.
It's due in July.
What's the likelihood of you making that deadline? I just want to work in the world of reality here. We don't have to come back until January. I think we're going to think about some similar to what we did with the early childhood bill and the study with pre-K, maybe some guiding questions, trying to understand who you're going to involve in your discussions. I just want when we come back in January us to feel something like the train is moving and we don't have to dig through the report again.
So what I know from the update I was able to get from Jess is that they are already working with the goal of meeting that deadline. But if you don't mind me just restating this back to you in a different way, if you are thinking we're going to be on break July 1, if you are interested in possibly adjusting the deadline back, possibly giving us some things to think about, I can go back and ask whether that would be helpful to us.
Thank you. Thinking about what the report that we got, and this is like broad brushstrokes, but I didn't think there was anything in there that was like really earth-shattering, or maybe not even. It was all fairly, like, I think, predictable to a certain extent. So it seems like July 1st could be doable on this one. I just like,
I wouldn't want to answer. We always try to do our best to meet every legislative deadline.
We have not, and I know that the agency, I know it's hard to hire people, but I know we're still waiting on the Holocaust study from last year. We're waiting on a couple other things,
Absolutely.
possibly this hazing, harassing, and bullying report.
Right.
So I just, eyes wide open, I just want to make sure that you all have the tools and the time. But I think, and maybe this is partly centered with the point, if we don't want to back December 15th where we can't respond, we could pull a couple of committee meetings together. We have money to do that. If it comes back August 1, then in September we can meet and maybe give more direction, something like that.
Yeah.
So that we really have a plan going forward.
I think, and just to the capacity questions, my goal next year is that if we, as we change some of our internal processes related to how we develop reports, is that if we are going to miss a deadline, we would let you know and give you an articulation of why and those kind of things. But I think what I'd like to do is I'll ask if it's helpful if that works for you, Mr. Chair, but also if you're interested in doing fall committee meetings, I think, our current goal from what I heard from the team is they are working to the deadline. But we don't have any more information on what that is. So
And who are you engaging in this process?
I'm not quite
Okay.
sure about that internal work, and I think we're probably still in the earlier phases of that in terms of, so can try and figure out a little bit more information, but it's also we do have a few more months to go in that. I can ask if a adjusted deadline would be helpful, but I also don't, if you're interested in having some conversations in the fall, I don't want to foreclose on your ability to do that.
Definitely, that'd be great.
I think it'll inform a lot of the work that we do next year, so, yeah, like having some fall prep time would be great for the start of the legislative session. Thanks.
And the big thing will be probably school construction this summer, but we could then re-engage a little bit, have a couple of committee meetings as a committee, even over Zoom, to get this report. And I think, depending on people's schedules, maybe end of August, to give you September, October, 3 more months to make changes.
I'll ask if an August 1 deadline is helpful. I had an interesting conversation, an interesting moment on legislative reports in your colleagues in the House earlier, which is, we get into also time for summer vacation, so maybe just as easy for us to meet a July 1. I'll double check and ask and communicate with you about that and see sort of like to what extent another month in the summer would be helpful to us. We had this moment earlier where it's like, well, is it January 1 or is it December 15th? And the answer is really it doesn't really matter except to me, because if it's January 1, I get the work product the week before Christmas, and then my team is working on it, just during that holiday period, right? So those kind of deadlines are, we unfortunately lose half of December usually when it comes to legislative reports. And I think I've said that to this committee before. So, are there any other questions or items that you're interested in terms of this work?
No.
So
So
I'll follow up and just give you an update.
yeah, actually, maybe even by Friday, just pop back in. Depends on the floor, and just let us know what Jess has to say, how things are going.
Sounds good.
Even some preliminary information to help us to see if maybe we can redirect you a little bit. So Hayden will have maybe you just on Friday. Anything else? Okay. Senator Williams, you good? Okay. We're in a little bit of a hustle down on approach. We're gonna go down now. Okay, you're good? No, Hayden's gonna